and I won't let the men who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
We're going to get the program started. But first I'm going to introduce to you Adam Putnam. And he's, of course, our Commissioner of Agriculture. He's was elected in 2010 and has been serving until the present. He was in the United States House of Representatives from 2000 through 2010 from the 12th Congressional District. He was the House Republican Conference Chair. He is a University of Florida graduate, as I understand. And Commissioner, I want you to know that that I was asked to do the Gator Growl this year. So when the Gator Growl occurs, I'm going to be doing that for you. And so, but Commissioner Putnam is running for governor this year, as you're well aware. And we're fortunate that we have a tremendous bench. We have a deep and strong bench of individuals. One of the reasons that the Republican Party has done so well and is so fantastic is because we have the strength of people who are candidates, the best candidates in the state of Florida and then ultimately the nation. And I know that Senator Jack Latvala is here. Senator Latvala, could you please stand? So Senator Latvala is... also running for governor, and he's a tremendous leader, the chair of the Appropriations Committee in the Senate, and a veteran legislator and a small business owner. So we're proud that we are able to come together as Republicans and have all of our Republican candidates here, and they'll be introduced after our Senator Rubio speaks. I want to say quickly that I met Adam when I was in the Florida Senate in my first few years with Commissioner Putnam. He's been active in many things that are important for the state of Florida, including comprehensive water bills. He is just like Senator Latvala, a leader in the state of Florida. We're not like Illinois, we're not like New York, we're not like New Jersey, we're not like California. We don't have over-regulation, we don't have over-taxation, and we've got a budget that is better than the United States of America's budget. Our credit rating is better than almost every other state in the nation. Our schools are some of the best in the nation. And the problems we have are people coming here, not because they're coming here, because they want to be here. 350,000 people coming to the state of Florida every year is the kind of good problem that we have to meet the challenges of success. And so thank you all for being here. This is a tremendous success tonight. I was just told that we had raised a net of $25,000 at this event. The Republican Party is strong and vibrant because we are together. Let's stay together. Let's not let division be our hallmark, but in fact, let it be that we are united as Republicans. With that, I ask that the Commissioner Putnam come forward and introduce our speaker tonight.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Senator. Wow. Walk-up music, fantastic. Thank you. They don't even give me that in Polk County, where I'm from. So the road to success runs through Seminole County, am I right? Senator Simmons was referring to my Gatorness, the fact that I'm a University of Florida graduate. So for those of you who are also Gators, you'll appreciate what I'm about to say. When we came past the protesters, and I heard the tambourine. That's the first time I've heard a tambourine since the Plaza of the Americas at lunchtime at the University of Florida campus, if you know what I mean. Like, what's protestful about a tambourine? Tea Party rallies never had tambourines. Like, if you're going to protest, bring a real instrument. Come on. It is wonderful that we are in such a position that we have a ballroom full of committed, conservative Republicans, and then there's the protesters outside who don't like the fact that we've cut Florida's unemployment rate in half. We've protected a AAA bond rating. 1,000 new people a day are moving here. Crime is at a 46-year low, and 120 million visitors are on track to visit our state just this year. Which part of that do they not like? There's plenty of room in New York for them to move there, or Illinois if they want to move there, because all their talent's coming to Florida. As Senator Simmons alluded, Illinois's got a $200 billion unfunded pension liability. The state of New York has roughly the same number of people as Florida and a state budget that's twice the size of ours. If they were getting all that government they're paying for, why are they all moving to Florida? We should put Bill de Blasio on the payroll at Enterprise Florida. He's the best thing going in terms of sending talent to Florida because they can't get out of New York fast enough. That's what conservative leadership does. That's what conservative leadership in the legislature, the cabinet, the governor's mansion, that's what that does. And that's why this matters. This grassroots effort, grassroots movement, this is what elections are all about. And when we lose that as a party, we lose elections. When we don't invest in our clubs, when we don't invest in our RECs, when we don't invest in talent knocking on doors, then we lose our way. If there's anyone who can attest to the value of grassroots, it's Marco Rubio, who I have the pleasure of introducing. Somebody who tapped into the grassroots in a long-shot campaign that resonated with people. As he traveled the state working Lincoln Day dinners and Republican clubs and meeting with business owners, he built that coalition, one business person, one school, one club, one family at a time. That's old school politics. And regardless of how technologically advanced we've gotten, it still boils down to the grassroots. Marco Rubio's never forgotten his roots. Marco Rubio is the embodiment of the American dream. Marco Rubio immediately became a player in Washington, a voice of moral clarity, not only for our hemisphere, but for the world. Marco Rubio fights for Florida's families and Florida's businesses day in and day out. He's an advisor to our president on key issues affecting this region of the world, to the point that he's put himself at risk, speaking out against tyranny and dictatorship in Venezuela, and he won't back down because that's not what he's made of. He's a fighter for Florida, and we're going to send him some help in 2018 to fill the other United States Senate seats so that we'll have both of those seats occupied by real conservatives fighting for Florida. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this celebration in 2017 is just laying the groundwork. It's preparatory for what we all have to do together to keep Florida moving in the right direction, to keep America moving in the right direction, to keep Florida red, to put Florida first, and to make Florida the launch pad for the American dream. It is my pleasure to introduce to you a man who needs no introduction to Florida Republicans, a man who fights every day for what's right for our country, who always does the right thing for the right reasons. Ladies and gentlemen, our United States Senator, Marco Rubio.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's great to be here in Gator County. I can't say the word whatever. Probably cost me votes, whatever. I mean, Thank you. I'm really grateful. Thank you guys for inviting me. Thank you for the eclipse glasses. Did you guys get these for the eclipse Marco room? I could have used them yesterday, although with that light keeps going, I won't be able to see anyway. But anyway, thank you. I'm really honored to be here. This is a great event, great to reconnect with so many good friends. And you've done a phenomenal job here today putting this together, and I'm just grateful, and I'm honored that you would invite me. So many people I haven't seen in a while that I've reconnected with, some that I've seen often over the last few weeks. It just reminds you how strong our party is in Florida and has been for almost 20 years. People I served with in the legislature. I see David Simmons spoke a moment ago. David Mueller's here. I served with him in the legislature. Denise Grimsley. Just brings back incredible memories and of things we've been able to do together in public service, and reminds me of how strong our party has been in Florida. And you just heard Adam talk a moment ago about the progress that Florida's made over those last 20 years of Republican leadership. I can tell you unequivocally that despite the challenges the state will always face, there really is no other state in the union that has it better right now. Florida has made incredible progress, and a lot of it is thanks to the work that you guys are making possible. I say this to you as someone who ran for office twice last year. I'm glad I won the second one, because losing 2 races in a year has never been a goal of mine. And so sometimes it's hard to explain to people how grateful you are for the work they do. But I want you to know the impact it has on us. Certainly, at least I want you to know the impact it has on me. Oftentimes when an issue comes before us and they become controversial, there's a lot of noise about it and a lot of debate about it or whatever, I have to stop and remind myself that when I ran for office, there were people that were not just voting for me, but knocking on doors and making phone calls because I told them I believed and wanted to do a certain list of things. And how unfair would it be to them if suddenly I get there and decide to change my mind and not do those things? Now, sometimes circumstances change and facts evolve, and so that's one thing. But to not live out the things that you said you were going to do if got elected is, to me, not just unfair to the voters who voted for you. It's unfair especially to the people that worked for you, who took time away to make phone calls and knock on doors in the heat and all the other things that you do. And so that has a huge impact. And the other is just a sense of incredible gratitude of the number of people, many of whom I've had a chance to thank personally, some of whom I will never, or have not yet had a chance to thank personally, who worked hard not just for me, but for the president, for our entire team in 2016, and we'll have to do it all over again in 18 and in 20. And I know it becomes cliche-ish to say it, but I want you to understand, at least from my perspective, as someone who started there in politics, whose first experience in politics was as a grassroots worker, knocking on doors, putting up signs, and making the difference, how grateful I am for the work you do and how grateful I am for the work you do at the county level in our parties. And it's why we try to do as many of these as we can every year, and that's why I'm grateful you accommodated me on a Tuesday night to be here, because we wanted to make sure that it was on a day that we wouldn't have something come up in Washington that would have forced a rescheduling. So I just want to, again, personally thank you for that. In the context of thanking people, before I get to the core of my remarks, I also want to take a moment and thank all the men and women here who serve our country or have served our country in uniform, and in particular those who continue to serve us in law enforcement. This weekend, again, we were reminded 6 officers across the country were shot, 4 of them in Florida, 2 of them lost their lives not far from here. And we are reminded again of the incredible danger that they face on a regular basis. They are the last line of defense between us and danger. If, God forbid, something terrible happens tonight and you call 911, they're going to show up. And they want to go home to their families too. But they are willing and prepared to stand in the breach and stand between you and danger. And we can say it a million times, and we can never express enough how grateful we are to them for the sacrifices they make for us and for the willingness to make sacrifices for us. And so we thank them very much. Now here's what I want my message to be about tonight. America's going to be okay. America's going to be fine. In fact, America, your America, my America, the America we're going to leave our children, has every chance to be better than it has ever been. I believe our children have the opportunity to be the freest and the most prosperous people that have ever walked the face of this earth. I do. It's hard to believe that if you open up newspapers, watch the news, get on the internet, whatever. Watch the sun get dark. I don't know if you noticed yesterday it got like really dark for a while, but I really believe that with all of my heart. I think because that's been our history, that's at a core of who we are. This summer we had an opportunity to visit a couple of places with our children, and one of the things that struck us as we were going to some of these places is how ours is a story of perpetual improvement. America's never been perfect, but it's always gotten better. The other thing that struck me is that every great cause in American history, every one, the ending of slavery, the right to vote for women, the ending of segregation, every single one of these was a fulfillment of our founding principles, not in spite of them, was an achievement of accomplishing or moving towards the promise of our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution that enshrined it, not in spite of it. And that doesn't mean that we are a nation or a people without blemish. As long as mortal man are the ones who govern us and live among us, we'll never be perfect. But for 240 some odd years, we are a nation that's always gotten better. In one word, each generation leaves the next better off, oftentimes by confronting challenges exponentially greater than the ones that we face today. America has a chance to be better than it's ever been. In fact, I believe that's our destiny. But it doesn't happen on its own. It will require us to act. It will require us to do certain things, and to do so in an environment politically that is troubling. Because the one thing I fear that we have lost in this nation is the capability to talk about politics and public policy. And that has to change. That has to change not because we are some sort of political pacifists who think our job is to be nice to everybody and politically correct all the time. It's not that. It's because honestly, you've got, in our democratic process, for it to function and work, you've got to be able to engage in a fair, transparent, and fact-based debate about public policy. In a nation as large and as diverse as ours, we have to be able and willing to work with people who disagree with us, even within our own party, while never abandoning our principles. And understanding that at the end of the day, every 2 years, there's elections. And people get to vote. And if they don't like what you're doing, they can vote for someone else. And if they like what they're doing, they can send you back to do it and keep doing it. That's what's different. Like every single person, I am shaped by the sum of my experiences. And those are always I'm always reminded of them when I come to places like this, because invariably, more than ever before, I end up walking through the kitchen of hotels. And the sounds and the smells remind me of my father, who worked in a hotel just like this. Well, not just like this, it had slot machines, but almost like this. And as a banquet bartender. And my mother, who was a maid, cleaning rooms and hotel floor and hotels and places just like this. And the reason why I share that story with you is not to tell you I come from this humble beginning. It's because of this. I believe that I know this. I know that America is a special place because I was raised by people who knew what life was like somewhere else. I was raised by people who understood and knew for a fact that most of the people who walk the earth, your future is decided for you by the circumstances of your birth. In almost every civilization that's ever existed, who you will be in life is determined by who your parents were, whether they're connected, whether they know the right people, whether you have the right last name. And that explains to you how unique we are, how different we are. In America, we were founded on the idea that every single human being has the right to life and to liberty and to pursue happiness, not because the founders decided it, not because the Declaration of Independence says it, but because God, our Creator, gave you those rights, and that we instilled a system of government to protect them. That's unique. They're not a history lesson, but it's important to remember who we are if we are to get to where we're supposed to go. That's unique because every other civilization said your rights are whatever the king decides they are, or whatever the people in charge tell you they are, but not here. And we haven't always been perfect in the fulfillment of those ideas, but every generation has gotten us closer, and the result has been extraordinary. You think about what this nation has achieved, what it's done for the world. Ask yourself this: what would the world look like today? What would the world look like today if there had never been an America? I promise you, it would not have been a better place. What would your life be like today if there had not been an America? What would my life be like today if there had not been a place like America? For a man with a 6th grade education and a woman with probably a 7th grade education could come and work hard and leave their children better off than themselves. This is not a fairy tale. It's who we are. It's our story. It's our history. It's our common heritage. And it is who we endeavor to continue to be for more people than ever before. And it leads me to why I'm a Republican. I'm a Republican because it is the home of the conservative movement. And I'm a conservative because I believe it protects the ideals and ideas that made that story possible. I believe free enterprise is the best economic model in the history of the world, not because it's perfect, but because it honestly says, if it appropriately works, if it's designed and implemented truly as free enterprise, not as corporatism, but as free enterprise, it says that your success will be determined by how hard you work and how good you are. It is the only economic model in the history of mankind that says everyone can be better off and we don't have to make anyone worse off. You could have more without someone else having to have less. I believe that, and I believe our movement protects that system. I'm a conservative because I believe conservatism says, of course we need to have a government. We're not anarchists. But that government should be limited, because when government goes beyond what it should be doing, it does more harm than good. I'm a conservative because conservatism believes that the most important institutions in society have nothing to do with government. Within the debate we're having in our country today, we make it sound like America is a government that has people living there, as opposed to America is a nation of people who have a government. We are not a government, we're a country, a people. And as a people, we recognize that the single most important institution in society, the first school, the first government, is the family. It's the family. It is the cornerstone, the basic building block of any successful society, and when that breaks down, nothing else works. And we recognize that while we need to have a government that understands that and does nothing to undermine it, government cannot replace the family. Government cannot replace parents. And laws can tell you what is legal, but they cannot tell you oftentimes what is right and what is wrong. Just because something is legal does not make it right. I'm a conservative because I believe that a strong America isn't just there to keep us safe, it keeps the world safer. Last night, the president, I believe, spoke powerfully to that principle. Whether he agreed or not with the war in Afghanistan, he's the president of the United States now. And he recognized that as difficult as the decision may have been, for us to walk away from that commitment would dishonor the sacrifices that people made, but would actually make the world more dangerous. It could potentially lead Afghanistan in just a short period of time to once again being the exact same place from which the attacks of 9/11 were conducted against us. And so when you come to those notions and you see where is the place in American politics that believes in a strong America, able to defeat any potential adversary but hopes of avoiding it, an America with equal opportunity through an economy that's vibrant, and a place that empowers, not tries to replace or weaken the family, the conservative movement is the movement that I believe best exemplifies that. But we're not a debate society. We're not a think tank. We have to put that into action. And that is where, unfortunately, I believe up to this point, this new Congress has failed. Because unfortunately, despite campaigning on these principles and telling the American people that if you vote for us, these are the things we'll do, on too many of these issues, it hasn't happened, at least not yet. And that needs to change. Otherwise, people will conclude that there's no reason to vote for conservatives because it doesn't matter anyways. And that, I believe, would be counterproductive for our country. Why is it important in the work you do? Because none of this is possible without winning those elections first. And the work you do is what makes that possible. I can tell you categorically what the Republican Party is not. It is not a place that believes that one race of people is superior to another race of people. It is not a place who believes that America only belongs to people of a certain color. In fact, tonight we stand here at a Lincoln Day dinner to honor a Republican president who united this country against that evil ideology and ultimately lost his life because of it. And it's important for us to make that clear. And I'll talk about the other side in a moment. But it's important for us to make that clear because I believe those people that are spouting that hatred pose potentially a direct existential threat to the conservative movement. I saw them give that rally and they called it Unite the Right. There is nothing conservative about those people. Nothing. We are the pro-life party that believes all human life is sacred. They are a party that believes in abortion on demand because they think it will cut down on people they don't like. It's disgusting. They want to see a government takeover of key industries. They want martial law. None of that is conservatism. We don't want them in our party. We don't need them in our party. They're not the reason why we won elections in 2016. That is not what conservatism is about. We're also not, and I think having that high moral high ground allows us to point to others, communists, socialists, anarchists, who have decided that they have the right to take violent action against people they disagree with. And that needs to be pointed out and has not received enough coverage. The fact that there are people on the other side of the political spectrum who decide that they can physically attack people they don't like. And it's not just Nazis and KKK people. They've attacked people that are, in their definition, not acceptable. It's not acceptable either. But first we have to take care of our own house. And our own house is the party of Lincoln. It's not the party of racists and bigots. And it can never be that. And it never will be that. I think we need to be, what is at the core of what we need to be focused on at the federal level? Two key things. Number one, we need to keep people safe from whatever the threats might be, from a cyber attack, from North Korea, from Iran, from radical jihadists. And we need to help our people become prosperous through an economy that creates the opportunity for everyone to get ahead without leaving anyone behind. And that is the agenda that I hope we will focus on in the months to come, in the years to come. It is the agenda that I believe is at the core of the president's victory and mine. The idea that, yes, there are real threats in the world, and the best way to confront them is with a strong America. An America that says we will win the war on terror no matter how long it takes, because there is no other acceptable outcome. We will defeat radical jihadists and dangerous ideologies that threaten people all over the world. We will have a strong national defense. We will build up our military, not because we seek war, but because we want peace. And we recognize that the greatest impediment to peace is weakness. It invites miscalculation and aggression. The best way to ensure you do not have a war is to make clear to any potential adversary that they can never win a war against you. That's why we need to rebuild our military. We need to be the party of equal opportunity in the economy. And you know what that means? That means having free enterprise work again. That means having a system of government or a system of laws that allow America to compete in a global economy. That does mean having tax reform. We have a tax code today that puts America at a competitive disadvantage with multiple other countries around the world. We are hurting ourselves. Tax reform is not just a campaign promise to be blocked by the other side so that they make it easier for them to win in 2020. It's good for America. It's good for our country. It shouldn't even be a partisan issue. And I hope that that not just is the next item on our agenda, but one that we make a priority and that we achieve a result on. I personally am working on a key component of it with Ivanka Trump. It's the child tax credit. And I'll tell you why I think increasing the child tax credit is so important and is a core Republican principle. The first is because raising kids in the 21st century is more expensive than any other period of time. In 39 out of 50 states, child care is more expensive than going to college. Now, if you were a business and you invested your money, this is not welfare. This is money of your taxes. If you were a business and you invest that money in a new piece of equipment or in a building, you get to deduct it off your taxes. But if you're raising the future taxpayers of America, the tax code doesn't recognize it. The most important thing we can do is empower parents, particularly working parents. And I'm not claiming to you that the tax credit alone will be enough. But if we seek to truly be the pro-family party, then we must have a tax code that recognizes how important families are and does nothing to dissuade them, does nothing to undermine them. And that's why I'm grateful that the White House has made the child tax credit a priority. That's why I'm grateful that Ivanka Trump has chosen to work hard with us, alongside us, to try to get this as part of any comprehensive tax reform. But we also need tax reform that makes America globally competitive again, economically. We can compete with any country in the world, but not with the highest business tax rate on the planet. not with the highest corporate tax rate on the planet, not with a tax code that says if you've made $1 trillion or $1 billion in some other country, we don't want you to bring that money back here because we're going to hit you with double taxes. And so that's why tax reform is a key priority that has to get done. The second is regulatory reform. Look, I fly on airplanes all the time. I don't have a problem with the fact that people inspect that airplane to make sure that it flies, that the pilot is really a pilot and not someone who stayed at the Holiday Inn Express. So we're not anti-regulation. We're anti-over-regulation. When these regulations exist solely for the purposes of A, justifying the jobs of the regulator, or B, as a weapon against competitors in the marketplace, then we got a big problem. The president's already done significant amounts on regulatory policy through his executive function, but we need to do more. We need to do more if we are truly to be competitive in the global marketplace. The third is 21st century skills. This economy is a different economy. I just talked to you about my parents a moment ago. In 1956, when they came here with the 6th grade and the 7th grade education, you could find a job that would never make you rich but made enough money to own a home and raise a family. You know, I don't have to tell you this, that's almost impossible today. That's almost impossible with a college degree today. And so there are a new set of skills that people need, and not all of them are 4-year degrees. I said this a lot of times when I ran for both of my races in 2016. It worked in one of them. But what I said is, honestly, we need to be empowering more people to be welders, plumbers, electricians. These are good jobs. These aren't bad jobs. These are important jobs. Why don't we graduate more of our young people ready to work on day one? You graduate with a high school diploma and an industry certification that says this person knows how to fix the air conditioning. And I promise you, in Florida, that's an important job. This person knows how to work on a BMW. 18, 19-year-olds making $40,000, $45,000 a year potentially. By the way, vocational training doesn't have to be a partisan issue, although they'll try hard to make it, because everything today is a partisan issue. And I'll talk about that in a moment as to why. And so we need to have those skills at every level. And that means, yes, people will continue to go to college and get 4-year and 6-year and 12-year degrees. You know, some people like being in college for a long time. But other people, those are valid choices too. And so if you can do that, if we just do those 3 things, and there's probably more to do, but if we just do those 3 things, have a globally competitive tax code, have a globally competitive regulatory system, and empower people with 21st century skills, you're going to take care of the rest. The American people still have great ideas and big dreams. They just need a chance. And that's the cornerstone of what we are. All the other stuff is important. But those are the 2 key things, the 2 key pillars of our moment. And if we do those things, we'll have taken a huge step forward in fulfilling that promise that I said lies ahead for our country. Now, the alternative is that we fail. The alternative is that we don't do those things, that we spend all of our time and energy on a bunch of other stuff. And then I think the story is one you don't want to be a part of. Then the story becomes how we are going to ask, how do we explain to our kids that they are the first Americans in our history to inherit a nation worse off than the one that was left to their parents?
Senator, if you really care about young Americans, why did you take $750,000 from fossil fuel executives in your last Senate election?
I'm so glad I live in America where she can say that, and a lot of countries should go to jail. I'm grateful that I live in America where you have a First Amendment. And I knew that might happen, so let me segue into that, because Adam talked about protesters. I don't have a problem with protesters. I don't have a problem with hecklers. I don't have a problem with any of that. You know why? Because one of the issues I'm working on now involve nations where that's not possible. I am grateful that I live in a nation where people can disagree. I'm grateful that I live in a nation where people get to vote every 2 to 4 years. I'm grateful that I live in a place where people can speak their minds and they can settle their differences at a ballot box. And sometimes we take that for granted, because for me, who have grown up here my entire life, and for many of you who have lived here your entire life too, we've never lived in a place different than that. And so for me, this is a very important thing, that we are able to still live in a society where people are going to be able to have these debates. I think her question has to do with energy policy. Yes, I believe America should be energy independent. I believe as a cornerstone of allowing us to succeed economically, we need to be able to power a 21st century economy. And I believe technological advances are making that energy more efficient and cleaner than ever before. And so I absolutely believe that America needs to be energy independent. We are crazy as a nation if we don't utilize all of the resources that God has blessed this great land with, and I will continue to be a strong supporter of that. Because if we don't, then we will have to explain to our children and grandchildren why they are the first Americans ever that live in a country worse than the ones that their parents grew up in. And I promise you that's not a conversation you ever want to have. And it's not one that I want to have either. Now, in closing, I want to make a couple more points about what I've just said to you and about all of this and how it all comes together. I have no problem with my fellow Americans who have different views on these issues and different ways to get there. Some honestly, earnestly, and deeply believe that our government should play a greater role in our society. Some honestly believe that our government needs to be in charge of more things. I don't agree with them. I have evidence, I believe, that proves that they're wrong. But I don't think that makes them unpatriotic. I expect the other side to extend the same courtesy to us. Just because we have policy disagreements does not make any of us less committed to America's future. But that goes both ways. But that's become very difficult to do. And the reason why it's become more difficult to do than ever is the point that the folks who cover this sometimes don't like. And I'm not talking about all of them, because I also believe in a free press. I don't want to be able to tell what the press to write or say. I don't want to control the press. I don't want to censor the press. I have no problem with any of it. But I also think it's fair for all of us to point to all of our failings. The political class has failed. It has failed because too many people have failed to do what needs to be done and are more interested in making headlines than making changes. All of our major institutions in society have failed because they either have not adjusted to the future or, quite frankly, have chosen to become insular. We have a big problem in the way our politics is covered. It's all about what can generate the most clicks, the most eyeballs on a screen. You know, earlier this year, we passed the VA Accountability Act for the first time ever. The president signed it for the first time ever. For the first time ever, you will now be able to, the VA secretary can fire someone at the VA who's not doing a good job. And you know what? It was bipartisan. Democrats ended up supporting it after opposing it for many years. It got very little coverage. There will probably be more written about a heckler here tonight than it was ever written about the VA Accountability Act. And you know, but just unfortunate. You know, about 3 weeks ago, we were able to pass a law, and the president signed a law that said that pharmaceutical companies, if they want to test a drug on cancer patients for adults, they have to test that drug for cancer patient children, because we have a massive lack of pediatric cancer drugs. It was bipartisan. It got very little coverage. But I promise you, the fact that tonight I'm criticizing media coverage, that will get headlines. They have the right to write and report everything they want. I'm not against them. But I'm just telling you that we have reached a point where politics is being covered as entertainment, as opposed to the debate about ideas and the future of our country. And I'm as frustrated as you are sometimes about it. Someone asked me, are you frustrated by it? Yeah, I think it's unfair that I say 3 things and only one of them is reported and turned around. That's just the way it is. But by the same token, what's the alternative? Because we're not going to censor the press and we're not going to get rid of the First Amendment. And we don't want to do that. And we don't need to do that. And so, in the end, I look at that and I say, this is not new. They've been saying this stuff for a long time. I've never been a favorite of the editorial boards. And if I recall correctly, the president, I don't think he got any editorial endorsements from any newspaper in the country. And I won in 2010 and again in 2016, and he was elected in 2016. So in the end, what you realize is that through all the noise, we are still a people, capable of making decisions after weighing all the facts, capable of seeing through the noise to see the truth, and put our faith in our people. And you do the right things, you allow history to judge your work. But it is troubling that, unfortunately, some of the major issues confronting our country today are not being discussed. And we just have to continue to work in that direction, whether we get credit for it or not. I don't think any of these things are possible for our future if there isn't a strong Republican Party. Not because I want it to be a one-party country, although I certainly want us to have more seats than the other side so we can pass our laws, but because of the things we believe in. This is the only home for it. It's a diverse party. It is the home of people that are very, very conservative, like Mike Lee in Utah, and people that have some different, more center of the road, like some of my colleagues from some other states. But they're Republicans. It is the home of people like me that support what the president has decided to do in Afghanistan, because while it's not ideal, it's better than all the other alternatives, and someone like Senator Paul. But we're still Republicans under this big tent. And we can work together on a bunch of other issues and disagree on a few of them from time to time. I would rather be a broad coalition or party that's a majority than a tight-knit group that all believes the same things in the minority. Because in the end, in order to govern a nation, you have to be able to work with people, even within your own party, that don't share all of your ideas. And you can do that without abandoning your principles. And oftentimes you can do that by convincing them to your principles. But we have to do it. We have to do it. Because in the end, if 2 years from now I come here again, and we haven't done tax reform, and we didn't do regulatory reform, and we didn't repeal and replace Obamacare, and we didn't rebuild our military, and we didn't make our nation safe, and we didn't secure our border, then how are you going to knock on a door and to ask people to vote for us again? Then how are you going to make a phone call and ask people to vote for Republicans and vote for conservatives because they're going to make things better? You won't be able to. And then I think a lot of the things we want to do will become impossible for a generation. So you are shown your willingness to do what needs to be done. It's time for us to step up and to do what we said we were going to do. I'm only one vote in the Senate. Maybe I can help influence a few more in the right direction on some of these issues. But my pledge to you remains the same as it's always been. The things that I believe in, I will work hard to achieve them. And I am willing on many occasions to take one step forward instead of no steps forward. I am willing to move one step at a time towards the goals and the ideas that we share, instead of achieving nothing at all. But I will tell you this, I will always believe in limited government and free enterprise as the way forward, because my life has taught me that it is the right approach for our nation, and our history teaches us that it is the right way for the world. I believe at my core, more than ever before, that this nation isn't just the nation, the greatest on earth, but the greatest of all time, and that it has a chance to be better than it's ever been. And the next time you open up a newspaper or turn on the news in the morning and feel down about our future, ask yourself this, because I've asked this to many groups, and to this day I've never gotten a good answer. Who would you rather be? Despite all of our challenges, despite all of our struggles, despite of all the things that divide us, despite all the difficult issues we have yet to confront and solve, what nation on earth would you trade places with? Because I can't think of one. I wouldn't rather be any other people or any other nation. And we take comfort and strength in our legacy as a party and as a people, in understanding that those who came here before us, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, they overcame issues even greater than the ones we're confronting now. A civil war, two world wars. Before that, between those two, a Great Depression, a scary Cold War that brought this world to the brink of annihilation. The Vietnam era, Watergate, disco music. These were horrifying things. I've used that so many times, some people get really mad. Like, I like this. But all kidding aside, think about the things the people who came before us overcame. You think what we're struggling with now is harder than the Second World War? You think that what we're struggling with now is harder than the Great Depression? You think we're more divided today than we were during the Civil War? And so, this nation has always had great challenges. But each generation of American before us has confronted them, and they solved them. Now guess what? Now it's our turn to do the same thing. And this party must lead the way in doing that. That's why I remain in public service. That's why you do what we do. Because the time has come for us to step up and do what every generation before us did. Confront our problems, solve our challenges, or confront our challenges and solve our problems, so that when our work is done, history can say about this generation, they faced some challenges, and for a while it wasn't clear they were going to do the right thing. But then they did. Then, like all the Americans that came before them, they stood up. They rose to the occasion. They confronted the vexing issues of their time. And because they did, they were able to leave for their children what every generation of American before them left: the single greatest nation in the history of all of mankind. So I look forward to continuing to work with you to achieve all of this. Please keep doing what you're doing. I promise you I'll do everything I can on my end. And together we're going to win elections in 2018. We're going to get the president reelected in 2020. And by the time our work is done, we will say that our work here was not in vain, and that we were able to do for our children what they deserve. Give them a country better than the one that was left for us. So thank you guys. God bless you. And I'm taking my glasses. Thank you.
Restroom break. If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my God above to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, from New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time to stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the ones who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Tim Kaufman. I have to tell you a quick story. About 15 years, I heard Tim sing at a prayer breakfast, and I was so overcome. He is my favorite. That's why he's here tonight. And so I went up to him afterwards and introduced myself, and I said, you know, I just think you're wonderful. And he had done one of my all-time favorite songs called Ordinary People. And I said, I'd like to have your name and your card and everything because I'd like to put you in my file at home so you could sing for my funeral. And the look on his face, he said, is it soon? So I didn't say at the beginning, I'm Catherine Townsend, the chairman of the Seminole County GOP, and we are so glad that you're here. With that, I'm going to ask Mr. Kaufman to come back up, and he'll give you his own direction. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight. We truly appreciate it.
Before we're dismissed, Catherine asked if I would sing God Bless America, and I said, with one caveat, no, I'm not Irving Berlin, but I rewrote some of the lyrics. And let me tell you why I rewrote some of the lyrics. I've been singing God Bless America. I'm 63. I've been singing it since I was 20. And I have gladly sung it. But over the last 3, 4, 5 years, I've had a hard time singing some of the lyrics for this reason. You see, God has blessed America, and in many ways we have squandered the blessing. We've given a lot of the blessing away through how we have conducted ourselves as a culture. You would expect this coming from a minister, I'm sure. So I rewrote some of the lyrics. When we get to the very, very last chorus, I'll ask you to stand and sing the traditional lyrics that we all know and love. But I just want to give you this caveat, because at another difficult time, and you would admit that we're in difficult times right now. Benjamin Franklin said at the First Continental Congress, "Have we now forgotten our powerful friend," referring to God? "I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men, and if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid?" Instead of singing God Bless America, I have rewritten it, as you can see, and follow along on the lyrics as I share with you. Thank you. While the storm clouds gather in our troubled land, let us swear allegiance to the worthy Lamb. Let us all be grateful for his saving grace. Let us lift our voices, humbly seek his face. God help America, land that we love. Hear our prayer, Lord, our confession. We repent, we renounce sinful ways, self-indulgence and abortion, redefining family. God help America, begin with me. Now let's stand and sing what we love. God bless America, land that I love. Good night. God bless you.